Welcome to Comical Recovery. I am your host with the most trauma, comedian Jessica Byrne, creator of the upcoming cartoon Bud-iss, winner of multiple East Coast comedy contests, and 35 consecutive, long, drawn-out years of life experience from the School of Hard Knocks. Subscribe, hit the like button for recognition, tell all your friends about your new addiction. Because sharing is caring. Happy October. Everything in life is a mess, so you will hear chaos behind me. You're welcome. Welcome to my life. So, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Super fun topic, very lighthearted. You're welcome. That's what we're working with today. So, I figured we would start the month off with the Wheel of Power and Control, because that's a super fun thing to talk about and bring awareness to. And like I said before, and I'll say a million times, I'm a hot mess, and I am completely unprepared. You're welcome. Now, enough self-deprecation. Moving on. So I thought I'd start with the traditional kind of domestic abuse, which is behind closed doors at home. And in this topic, I thought it was really important to grab out 3 things from the Wheel of Power and Control that keeps most people in a domestically abusive situation, which is economic abuse, isolation, and emotional abuse. Many times, from experience and from friends that I've known, people wonder, why do you stay in an abusive relationship? Why don't you get out of it? Why is it so hard to leave? Etc. And I think of all of the things in this Wheel of Power and Control, those 3 things that I mentioned, economic abuse, isolation, and emotional abuse, are the top reasons why it is hard for someone to leave an abusive relationship. So, generally, most times, there's the person that has control over the situation is the one that makes the income. And financially, it's hard for the other person to leave. And I'm not putting a label of sex on these roles, because I don't believe that it's just one sex that does this. I don't believe that just men use power and control. I believe women do it also. So I don't think it's fair to label, and I'm not going to. And I think if you're in a same-sex relationship, then the same thing is possible. Then your partner can be this person if they qualify these qualities. So in this particular piece of paperwork I have, it says prevent her from getting a job or keeping a job. So preventing the other person from keeping a job, making the other person ask for money, giving that person an allowance, taking their money, not letting that person know about or have access to the income. Those are all under the category of economic abuse. Then, somewhere in between, that's obnoxious, somewhere in between is going to be isolation and emotional abuse. So I'll start with isolation, because isolation, I think, is definitely, one of the first steps in power and control. And so controlling what the person does, who they talk to and see, what they read, where they go, and limiting the outside environment, using jealousy to justify these actions. That, I think, is the like one of the first things that kind of chips away is creating this isolating environment and making the partner feel like they can't have support in their outside circle, or like they can't trust their outside circle. In my experience, when you're with an abusive partner, which, yes, I have experience in this category. Most categories that I talk about, I will have experience in. Yay for me. That is where the 35 years of School of Hard Knocks comes in, kiddos. Sweet Jesus, you're going to hear every single noise behind me because I decided to do this at 7 o'clock at night, and I am going to internally lose my shit. But moving on. So what I've experienced is my abusive partner will start to make me not be able to trust my friend circle, make them out to be people that aren't for me, or that are bad for me, or a bad influence. That's a big one, a bad influence on me, etc. Oh my God. And I'm just going to pause this and start over until there's no noise behind me, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to focus, because this is ADHD at its finest, and now I'm off the rails on topic. Super cool. Sometimes in normal relationships, you want to apply domestic violence to your partner, and as fun as that might sound at the moment, it is not the answer. And that was a joke, guys, so chill out. Don't take me freaking seriously. But seriously. Sometimes, some of us wish it was legal to beat our boyfriends, and it's not. So, still a joke. Moving freaking forward. Isolation, which is what I'm doing to myself in the car. Because this is where we're going to find the most freaking serenity today. But in a domestic violence situation, this would not even be able to be happening, because I would be trapped inside the house and cornered and sucked into an argument. So the good news is, we're in a safe place, we're in the car, and we're going to finish this podcast. Because that's what we do around here. We follow through with our word. But when you're in a domestic situation, that is not easy to do. And what happens is, when we don't have experience in the domestic situation, the domestic violence background and abuse background, our friends can shame us without knowing that that's what they're doing. So, what that looks like is something so simple. It says, it's when your friend says, if you're in an abusive situation, your friend says to you, "You're so smart. I don't know why you stay." What we hear as the victim is, "You're an idiot. Why do you stay?" Even though that's not what you said. That's what we hear. And it's not you. We hear that from our partner all the time. "You're an idiot. How could you miss the dishes? How could you miss that one cup when you did everything else?" Or, like they nitpick. And that brings me into the emotional abuse. So that is put downs and making the person feel bad about themselves. Name calling is abusive. Making that person feel like they're crazy. Playing mind games and humiliating the other partner, and then making them feel guilty for their actions. All of that is abuse. And that kind of stuff can happen in a regular relationship that is high conflict, as my female therapist used to say. But it also happens in abusive relationships. It happens in relationships with narcissists, which I'm not going to tackle that because that's a topic in itself, and that could probably be a topic for an entire year. And I definitely have a year's worth of fun facts, information, and situations on that particular topic. But we are not doing that today. Today, I'm going to go through the rest of the wheel of power and control. But those to me are the top three that keep the partner that's being victimized in a domestic abuse situation. So, in this particular case, it has using male privilege, but like I said, I personally don't say it just happens with male and female dynamic. It happens with any dynamic. So treating that person like a servant, making all the big decisions without asking for their opinion about it, acting like the master end-all be-all boss of the household, being the one that defines the roles. Those are all abusive. And I know, of course, there are certain circumstances that people define roles, and, like BDSM, let's say. And I bring that up because this is not the same. That arena can be abusive, but generally speaking, if you're talking to your partner about the roles and you're discussing it and having an adult conversation, it's probably not abusive. If you can have an opinion and not get your opinion used against you later, it's probably not abusive. If your opinion or your words get used against you later, it's probably abusive. I'm going to go with like 100%, maybe 90%, but chances are, yeah. Using coercion and threats is another category on this power and control wheel. So making or carrying out threats to do something to hurt that other person, threatening to leave that person, to commit suicide, which was something that I didn't know until I found out about this power and control wheel. I had no idea that was abusive. Reporting the other person to welfare, making that person drop charges, and making the partner, do illegal things. Those are all things that fall under using coercion and threats. Using intimidation, making the person afraid by using looks, actions, and gestures. That was a big one in my last relationship. Smashing things, destroying her property, well, her or his. Abusing pets and displaying weapons. That was another one that I didn't know about. I wasn't aware of it. Once I became aware of it, I was just shocked at how many things were going on around me that I was completely unaware of. And that stuff sits in your subconscious, and you start to build this mental prison, and all of these fearful thoughts that justify why you can't leave that situation. Using children is another thing on this list. So making the person feel guilty about the children, using the children to relay messages. Ooh, boy, I was one of those children. Using visitations to harass that person, threatening to take the children away. That one is pretty gnarly. We'll table that one for another year, because I don't really want to talk about that one this year. Okay? The last thing on this power and control circle is going to be minimizing, denying, and blaming. making light of the abuse, not taking the other person's concerns seriously, saying the abuse didn't happen, shifting the responsibility for abusive behavior and saying that that person caused it. That's kind of a classic line for when someone is using cheating to make you feel guilty. It's like, well, if you were more affectionate, I wouldn't have cheated. Well, that's bullshit. I know my cursing has increased through these last few podcasts, but I've been a bit frustrated, so my lips are a little looser than usual. Hopefully, they will tighten back up. Don't be a perv with that comment, okay? Ladies and gents, please. Keep it mature. Don't have your mind in the gutter like mine. Anyways, I was meant to crack a smile. At least it cracked a smile for me, because this is a shitty topic, guys. It's not a fun one to talk about, but it's a topic that needs to be talked about. And I bring this in with these details because, sweet Jesus, can you hear the noise behind me? You try to find freaking quiet and you just wish that you were isolating or something. It's not a funny joke. It's a stupid joke. And you know why it's a stupid joke? Because I'm listening to mumbling in the background because I'm in my stupid car. And this is what happens when you have ADHD. You hear other noises and people talking and you go, oh my God, everybody can hear that. And you start creating this insane dialogue in your brain that is completely off topic from domestic frickin' abuse. Maybe that's God doing for me what I can't do for myself. Anyways, guys, so I'm going to move on because I'm talking about domestic violence, but there's actually a wheel for workplace bullying, and it's a power and control wheel as well. And I think that this is super important because when I discovered this power and control wheel, I'm like an addict, I can't just be satisfied with one power and control wheel. I have to look up all of them. I am an addict, by the way. And one is never enough. If there's more, I want all of it. So I was digging like I do, and I found this really cool power and control workplace bullying wheel. It's really cool, isn't it? So using coworkers against each other, minimizing, denying, and blaming is in this category again. Using isolation. This one's a little different. Controlling what workers do, who they work with, talk to, controlling what they read, where they go, So same sort of concepts. Using employer privilege, using economic abuse. So that would be threatening to terminate the worker and ruin the worker's reputation. Using coercion and threats, using intimidation, and using emotional abuse again. So putting your coworkers down and etc. And so I just bring this also into this discussion because what I found in my life is that if I have an abusive home life and I get out of it, I can tend to navigate myself right into an abusive work life or an abusive friendship. So I haven't created, but in abuse cycles, for me, it happened as a child. So I get this abuse cycle introduced to me in my developmental years, and then I have this thought in my brain that this is normal and this is how the world works. And so then I go and find a relationship and I get into the same cycle, and then I find abusive co-workers or workplace situations, and I find abusive friends, and I just chip away at all my self-esteem. And even after I leave an abusive situation, as far as intimate partnership, and then I go and find like the workplace and stuff, because I am so used to this conditioning, and I think that it is normal from my childhood, that I am just drawn towards that in another situation in my life, because that's the only consistency I know. And I bring this up because it's so freaking hard to break that cycle. It's literally an addiction that is created from the ups and downs. And from the research that I've come into contact with, I find that it is more like a gambling addiction than, let's say, like an alcohol addiction or a drug addiction. Because there's some endorphins that are built up, through each of these addictions, right? So, like, I'm an alcoholic, so I have these receptors that are going off in my brain when I'm thinking about drinking, and, when I'm anticipating my next drink, and when I'm getting ready to go out and party, like, there's this whole fireworks show of chemicals that are going off in my brain before I even get to my actual addiction. And when I get to my addiction, I have that whole chemical reaction going off, including the new chemical that I am introducing that's outside of myself, right? But my brain's already like cocktailing up an entire bar of dopamine, serotonin based drinks in my little mind before I even get to the actual drink or drug, whatever. But in gambling, even the losses shoot off like dopamine and serotonin and adrenaline and whatever else. I don't have that happy little sheet in front of me, because if you know me, you know I have it, but I don't have it because I'm in my car trying to find peace and serenity while I talk about domestic violence with all you lovely people. Because I'm a beautiful contradiction. So let's keep moving forward. So domestic violence or a narcissistic abuse or any kind of abuse cycle is more like gambling, because you get all these little things shooting off in your brain prior to getting your fix. And you even get like different little things shooting off in your brain when you're not getting your fix. Because a lot of times, in an abusive situation, there's a punishment. And a lot of times the punishment is stonewalling, or I can't remember, just ignoring the other person. Like the victim gets ignored by the abuser. That's the punishment. They don't get the attention and praise, because there is a cycle. Let me go to that. Let me find my happy little cycle here. The cycle of violence. And it always starts with the honeymoon phase, or love bombing a lot of times, because we never, the person that abuses us doesn't just come in guns a-blaring and like start chipping away at our self-esteem. At first, they build us up and they say all these amazing, nice things and, all this appreciative stuff, until they just start throwing hand grenades of crap at you. And then we get this beautiful little tension building phase. And that's generally a lot of times when they do this stonewalling and, ignoring and not talking to you kind of thing, so that it builds tension. And then there's the explosion. And then it goes back to the honeymoon phase. And right before the honeymoon phase, or in between all of these phases, is denial, because the abuser is not going to take any ownership over the abuse happening. That's where the crazy making starts. That's where they say things like, "You're just sensitive. It's no wonder your friends don't want to hang out with you anymore." All of a sudden, the blame starts being shifted at it's your problem and you've created this. If you just did what I asked you, I wouldn't hit you, etc. And if you've been through this sort of thing, you know. that is what's happening. So, to end this podcast, I think the most appropriate thing to do is say, if you are in a situation where you have domestic abuse or a cycle of abuse or violence happening, number one, start stacking money, even if it's $1 or $5. Whatever expense you can cut so that you can save that money, that the abuser is not aware of where that money's going to. Stash it, hide it, so that you can slowly start to build a financial way of getting out, because that's usually the biggest hang up, is that the victim can't leave because they can't afford to leave. They're in a situation where they are helpless because they've put all their chips in this person's basket, and and now they don't have a way out. It's especially more difficult with children in that financial regard, but there are a ton of resources available to women and children who are in domestic situations. I believe you can call 211 or 411, and I highly suggest you do that. It is also super important to find a friend or 2 or 3 or 5 that will emotionally support you through this journey on the way out of this abusive situation. It is crucial that you find people that will help you and understand where you're coming from, and also understand that you're going to go through an emotional withdrawal and like this period of loneliness where you're going to want to go back to what is comfortable, which is abuse. A lot of times that's what happens. I think there's a ratio of like 7 times. I think it's 7 times before a person leaves their abuser. They have to leave repetitively until they finally stay gone. So don't shame yourself if you're in that phase. The best advice I always have for any situation is to be kind to you, because that's the only thing that's going to help you get out of the situation. And then I think it's really important to find the wheel of equality. And the wheel of equality looks like this. So, negotiation and fairness, seeking mutually satisfying resolutions to conflict, accepting change, and being willing to compromise. This is all going to be stuff that looks what it looks like in a healthy relationship, which, by the way, is terrifying, because it's all going to be brand new. And for me, I walk into the new situation with these fear glasses on, waiting for the other shoe to drop off, because it's so unfamiliar. And I'm like, okay, am I in the love bombing stage? Is this just a phase? Is this all going to crumble before me? And I'm going to feel like an idiot for walking into the same shit over and over? And the answer hopefully is no. And then non-threatening behavior, taking and acting so that this partner feels safe and comfortable expressing themselves and doing things. And, I still tend to be very honest and transparent, because I feel that the more honest I am, the more that other person, good or bad, can let their guard down to be their true selves. So if they're a bad person, they're going to continue bad behavior without these other qualities, like mutually satisfying resolutions to conflict, taking and acting so that the partner feels safe and comfortable expressing themselves and doing things. It's super important for me in a healthy relationship to say, hey, I want you to ask for this, because that makes me know that you respect me. I know it's a stupid thing, maybe, to you, but it's really effing important to me. And, I need it. And if I don't get it, then I'm out of here, or whatever the ultimatum is. But sometimes there needs to be a non-negotiable ultimatum, and that isn't a manipulative thing. That is a boundary. And boundaries are super important, especially when you're trying to get out of a bad situation and learn what a good situation and what good and healthy things look like. So then next on the equality wheel is respect. Listening to your partner non-judgmentally. Being emotionally affirming and understanding, and valuing your partner's opinions. Emotionally affirming, what does that mean? It means validating your partner. So when your partner says, when you raise your voice, it makes me feel scared, you say in a validating response, I hear and understand that when I raise my voice, you feel scared and threatened. So I will really work on keeping my tone neutral. That's someone expressing their next action, the new action to take. Now remember this, talk is cheap. So unless they actually do what they say they're going to do, then their words are empty. Make sure that you're watching how this person acts, because that's their reality. The way that they walk is reality. The way they talk is empty unless they have that matching with their actions. So an economic partnership is the next thing on this equality wheel. Making money decisions together, making sure both partners benefit from financial arrangements. Then there's shared responsibility. Mutually agreeing on a fair distribution of work, making family decisions together. Then there's responsible parenting, sharing parental responsibilities, being a positive, non-violent role model for their children. Then there's honesty and accountability, accepting responsibility for self and your actions, their actions, whatever. Both of you need to do that. Acknowledging past use of violence, if there has been, and admitting being wrong, communicating openly and truthfully. And last, and probably most important, trust and support. Supporting your partner's goals in life, respecting the right to their feelings, friends, activities, and opinions. So, there you have it, kiddos. We are looking to get out of the wheel of power and control and get into the wheel of equality. Now, will I add these links so that you can look them up for yourself? Hopefully. What do I need from you? Prayers that I can follow through. Because life is just a little bit distracting, if you couldn't tell by this particular recording. But I'm going to push through because my integrity means everything to me. And if I say I'm going to show up, I'm showing up. So here I am. Thank you so much for showing up with me and joining me in another beautiful episode of Comical Recovery. I hope this helped, and I hope that you got a chance to chuckle here and there, because this is a super heavy topic, but I do want to tackle this month because it's a topic super close to my heart. As I said, it's something that I experienced when I was a kiddo and in my adult life, because it's got a ripple effect. So if I can help anybody get out of this not so fun situation and create more awareness around it, and more awareness around how we talk to our friends that are in these situations, instead of saying things like, "You're so smart, I don't understand why you don't leave," instead maybe saying something like, how can I be helpful? How can I help you through this situation? How can I be supportive to you? What kind of support do you need? Do you need emotional support? These are the kinds of supports that I am available for to you. If I help you financially, I can only do that once, and making those non-negotiables for yourself so that you have boundaries, because it is hard to see someone go back and forth. But when we're really upfront with the person and we give them the opportunity and let them know this is the only opportunity you have, if you go back, I can't help you again, and making that really clear. Tough love is hard sometimes, but it is so powerful to have someone know that you're willing to go the extra mile, but you can only go once, Sometimes that makes all the difference. So please comment below, share with your friends, spread this around, because the awareness for this month is super important, and together we can help each other and help other people save lives of their friends, save futures for kiddos that are involved in their parents, doing this stuff. Let's make a difference, guys. Put your freaking big girl pants on. Buckle up, Buttercup. We're getting real in the month of October. Enjoy. I love you. Sharing is caring, so spread the word. And share this gosh darn podcast, because I'm trying to keep it together and not do a bunch of curses. And also, that's very difficult when you're distracted by life and circumstances. But I'm going the extra mile for you. I'm sitting here dying of heat stroke in my car, giving you some raw, comical recovery from your friend and host, comedian Jessica Byrne. You guys have an awesome night, and I will see you next week.